it really comes from inside. It's an inner thing. You have to learn how to live within your means. It's just the way it is.
Today, we are talking with how to save money. Don't we all want to know how to save money? Live more frugally? Gosh, the prices are up on everything, but we have some insider tips to actually let you have more money in your bank account at the end of the month and spend money on things that really are important to you today. Not only is Sara Conklin, who's joining us, she is an author of ours. She is a #1 bestseller, international bestselling author, and she is joining us. Sara, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you.
Yeah. And she is the author of Fundamentally Frugal. So tell us, how did you start to become so frugal? How did you walk down that road of, just being normal Sara to becoming this international best-selling author?
Well, to be honest with you, I have been frugal all of my life. I come from a very long line of frugal women. My grandmother, my mom, my aunts, my uncle were all frugal. It's kind of part of our DNA. So it was a natural progression for me to start teaching others what I know. I mean, before I started blogging about this in 2018, but before I was even doing that, I was helping people save money, friends, family, be more frugal, and allow their money to stretch just a little bit further.
So what is the first step to being fundamentally frugal, and what does that really mean?
Well, I think that you have to actually dive deep into your heart and into your soul a little bit and realize what matters the most for you. So
Yeah.
frugal living isn't necessarily about not spending money. It's about spending money with value and with intention. So if
Hmm.
for you traveling is your heart song, you love to travel, then you are going to cut back on other things that don't matter as much so you can have that money to travel.
That was a lesson I learned a long time ago. It's like, well, is a Starbucks cup of coffee more important to you than taking that trip to Cancun?
Exactly.
So if you're really wanting the trip to Cancun and you really don't care if you have a Starbucks every day, then put that money in your Cancun bucket, right? Because
Absolutely.
then you're going to get more personal value and satisfaction out of it than you would that cup of coffee.
Yes. Agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. So give us like what is the one not the most common thing that people make a mistake with their spending?
They don't know where their money is going. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing. And it's the biggest challenge. Specifically, I speak to midlife women. And there's this incredible fear about facing the bank statement, going
Mm-hmm.
online, looking at where your money is going. There's this trepidation, this fear, this vulnerability that they're not ready to dive into. And if
Yeah.
they can just look at it, just take 5 minutes, pour themselves a cup of coffee or maybe something stronger, a glass of wine, and sit down with their laptop and just go through it, just to be aware of
Mm-hmm.
where their money is going so they know now where to take the next step and how and what things they can cut back on that don't really
Yeah.
mean that
And
much.
you have a chapter in your book called Cheap versus Chic. Okay. And I am going to tell you, my kids make fun of me, but lately, especially in 2024, I was like TikTok queen of buying things on TikTok. I was like, it's so unbelievably inexpensive that I could get a new outfit. I could get, this, that, or the other that was a convenient thing. And I'm like, oh, this is only $10. Like everywhere else, I'm thinking it's $50. So how can I stay chic and still be cheap at the same time?
Well, my theory is always to buy, instead of buying off of TikTok with the fast fashion, is to buy
Yeah.
quality pieces. I love the
Hmm.
good quality pieces. I love the classic pieces. I just actually did some studying on color analysis. So I can figure out, I'm a deep winter, so I can go through my closet and figure out what pieces look best and work best for me
Hmm.
and find those in the classic pieces. However, I can't ever pay full price for anything. I just can't. It goes
Hmm.
against everything that I believe in. So I'm a big thrift person. I mean, they now have these, they have ThreadUp, they have Stitch Fix, they have all of these places online where they can fabricate for you your own style and send you a box that's so much cheaper than buying
It
retail.
is so much true. There's so many different things. And on your YouTube channel, you talked about, going to even like the runway, you can rent clothes and you can find secondhand
Exactly.
things and just really making that decision to do that. But sometimes people have a mindset against that, So how do you wrap your mind about, how do
They
you get
do.
your mind to become a frugal mindset?
It takes practice. It really does. Baby steps, small, simple
Mhm.
systems that you put into place, little, I mean, atomic
Yeah.
habits, right? Systems. James Clear talks about the systems and the habits that you form, and little tiny things. It doesn't have to be all at once. You don't have to switch from a spender to a saver in
Yeah.
3 days. Just work on those little things that you find, those little golden nuggets that maybe you hear from YouTube or read in a book that sound reasonable for you, and you think, I can do that. That's simple.
So let's dive into savings and debt and things like that. I know, and I also know this, that I've had some friends where their income went up, so then they thought their expenses should go up. So their lifestyle goes up, and they're still in the same boat. There was a time when I lived in a 25,000 square foot house and had TV stations and living this really glamorous, luxurious lifestyle. And my girlfriend's like, "Well, you don't understand. You're living this lifestyle." And I said, it doesn't matter. We're all the same. It's just more zeros. Everybody's living on the edge. At that time, my husband was spending, almost outspending what we were making. I said, so it doesn't really matter. I might have more stuff, but it's still just more zeros, and you're in the same freaking stressful situation.
Right. And lifestyle creep is a real thing. I mean, it happens to just
Mm-hmm.
about everybody. And what we really need to learn, and it really comes from
Yeah.
inside, it's an inner thing. You have to learn how to live within your means. It's just the way it is. You know, a person who's got a mortgage payment, they're house poor, their
Yeah.
mortgage payment is 40% of their income, then they've got two car payments and they've got $30,000 worth of credit card debt, and they're paying making
Yeah.
payments on their kids orthodontist stuff. That's too much. There's no reason for it. There's so much of that fear of
Yeah.
missing out, and that fear, that keeping up with the
Right.
Joneses, that outside persona that they feel that
Mm-hmm.
they need to portray to everybody else. I think there's something to say when it comes to looking
Yeah.
inside and figuring out exactly who
Mm-hmm.
you are, who you want to be, where your values lie, and how much you really care about what others think.
Yeah. And so how do you get out of someone who's dug a hole? Maybe they do have those two cars, they do have the higher house payment and all of that stuff. And because I remember you said, my mom used to tell my dad, you just have to go make more money, go sell more. But I heard you say, like, it's not necessarily about making more money. How do you pull back the expenses? I mean, I'm always a believer in growing your income, but you still need to, like, how do you start to evaluate where you should cut back?
Well, it really is about those small steps, those simple habits that I chatted about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There's something called the debt snowball method, where you list your debts from smallest to largest. You
Hmm.
ignore the interest rate, because many times debt is not a math issue, it's a you issue.
Yeah.
So we put aside those interest rates, list smallest to largest, and then start finding the money to check those off one at a time. So
Yeah.
pay off that smallest debt. If you have a debt, a store card that's $1,000, you find the money somewhere. Whether you're selling stuff on Marketplace, whether you're babysitting for your sister's kids on Friday night, whatever it takes to start that snowball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And so you pay the minimums on the rest of the stuff, and you pay off that smallest one first. Then you literally, like a snowball, you roll that payment over to the next one.
Yeah.
So you're adding to the next one, and again looking for money wherever you can, and it continues on from there until you get to the bottom of the list.
I like that because you're getting momentum. Instead of starting with the biggest one that's going to take so long to pay off, you're not
Yeah.
seeing any progress and you could get defeated. But when you start with the smallest one, then you're like, ooh, I could get this knocked out in 6 months or maybe even a couple of months if you're putting it in there and you're like, okay, that's done, put it to rest. And I also like what you're saying is, and you talk about this too, is like doing an inventory of keeping the things that really bring joy to you, and either you're going to give it away, but if you can sell it, then that money, you could say anything that I sell, that money is going to go towards either paying off debt or something that you would like better. Because if it's just sitting in your closet, you're like, well, this money is sitting here when I could have something else that I really want.
Right. And this isn't a forever thing. This is just a for now thing. So
Oh, that's
you're
good.
working hard, you're in this different mindset, and you're checking these things off of the list just so you can
Yeah.
breathe again. Just so
Hmm.
you don't feel like you're drowning. So you can surface, take a deep breath and reevaluate where your money should be going.
Yeah. What do you think about, a lot of us are aging. I'm one of them, right? We're all getting the biggest boomer part is getting older and in retirement. What are tips for retirement?
I see a lot of women who are in a little bit of a panic. They're in their 50s right now and they have very little retirement and they're not really sure what to do. Um, Now, I was able to retire my husband through our lifestyle. My husband was able to retire at 62. So he was a young retiree.
Yeah.
And the reason that we were able to do that was because we didn't have debt. We paid off our house already. We didn't have credit card debt. We didn't owe any card payments. We had set ourselves up for success because we knew that that was our goal. So
Hmm.
if you're in your 50s, my biggest suggestion is always to really get crazy intense on that debt payoff, get
Hmm.
rid of everything that you can, and then your remaining years just start socking away as much money as you can.
Yeah, and then it's, having that, like looking at your number and what does it cost you to live? Like I've looked at my number, I'm like, all right, my house is paid off, but it's like, okay, there's still taxes, there's still insurance, which goes up every year, there's still utilities that tend to go up every year. So what does that look like for you? And what is your nut that you've got to have? What is it today? What is it 10 years from now? Like if, in Texas, we're really lucky because once you hit, I think it's the age 65, at least half of your taxes get frozen. All the school taxes get frozen. So what you can expect with that. I wish it
Yep.
was going away. Like, oh, you don't have to pay the school tax, but at least it's frozen. But it's like
Yeah, we have
knowing,
some programs like that in New York too.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. But it's kind of taking that inventory, right? Of what is the future look like, and then how much money do I have? How much money is that earning to that I can live on? And if it's not enough, do you have to cut your lifestyle? Do you have to sell your house? Do you have to buy something smaller? Do you have to get a cheaper car that has not as much insurance? I mean, so these are all, and they're scary questions to ask yourself because not all of us want to. I remember my aunt, she just didn't want to leave her house no matter what. She didn't care. She wasn't moving.
Right. My grandmother was the same way. My grandmother passed away in her home because she just refused to leave. But I also think that you also have to examine, what do you perceive your retirement life to look like? What is it that you want to do? Do you want to travel? Do you want to become a snowbird here in upstate New York? It's freezing in the wintertime,
Yeah,
and so many of the older generation, they go to Florida for the winter.
true.
Is that something that you want to do? Are you okay with downsizing into an apartment, a single bedroom apartment in a senior
Yeah.
complex with socialization available for you? So
And
it
sometimes
depends
that
really
can be
on your personality.
depressing too, right? Like you said, your mom didn't want to go. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got to go. I just had cousins that did this. They downsized from their house. They went to a different house and then they realized they need everything on one floor. And they went from, I think, 3,500 square feet to 2,000 square feet. And now they're in, I think, 1,000 square feet. But
Wow.
in her mind, she said it was the best thing we ever did because her health, both her and her husband's health isn't great. We can
Yep.
walk from one room to the other. It's easy for us, and they take care of everything. Therefore, it's still it's not it's a standalone house, but it's in an area where they offer services and things like that. But it's like wrapping your head around a different lifestyle if you can. I mean, me myself, I'm like, I don't want to leave my house. I love my house. I love my yard. I want to stay here, but it's expensive. So
Yeah. And in your 50s, 40s, even when you're thinking about that, if you're considering buying a house, consider what your life is going to look like in
yeah,
retirement. If this is going to be the house that you're going to stay in for the rest of your life, what
yeah.
does that look like?
Yeah, the expenses, making sure you have a bedroom on the first floor, because that's all there. Where I mean, we're not giving financial advice here. I just want to say that no financial advice, but places to put your money where you feel like you're getting residual income and that you have X amount per month. Do you have like things that you should have set up that you're getting, whether you're in your 30s or 40s? I was advised to get whole life insurance that I was putting money into, so then I could have money that I could pull out at a certain age, tax free was the benefit of that. But like, what are some of your favorite places?
Well, and I am not a financial advisor, to be honest with you. I have a financial advisor and I let her take care of that for me because
Hmm.
it's not my strong suit. My strong suit is let me save the money, let me be frugal so I can give it to somebody else so
Yeah.
they're smarter than I am. They can do their thing. But I always think it's a good idea to diversify. We own
Hmm.
2 rental properties that we don't owe any money on. So that is income that's coming in every single month.
Hmm.
Um, that we have available to
Yeah, I
us.
love that, creating different sources of income that you're not having to spend your time necessarily to do, and making those
Yeah,
investments when you're younger, if you can, so that it's set up. And
right,
even if you have a mortgage on it, eventually it can get paid off by the time you're ready to retire. That then you're having more income from the rental
right.
income makes a lot of sense.
Well, and you have to be, I mean, we all know what the housing market is looking like
Yeah.
right now, so it's pretty expensive to purchase. So, I mean, I would never recommend anybody to get a mortgage on a rental property because there's too much risk. I am very risk
Ah,
averse. I don't like risk at all. So for us, we had the cash available, liquid cash available, so we could invest in these. But to me, it feels very scary to invest in something with a mortgage when what happens if for 3 months it's not rented out?
yeah,
What do
you
you
have
do
to
then?
be able to have the cash to do that. So what we did,
Absolutely.
I did it with my son. He wanted to do it. I had done some in the past. So we bought one, we paid cash for it, and then we financed it, and then
Yep.
we bought three more, right?
Yep.
And then so we have one that is still paid in full. I think there's four altogether. So one is paid
Nice.
in full, and then the other three have mortgages on them. But then, like you say, if we don't have a renter for a little while, then the money from the other one has to carry that, or you
Yes.
have to have extra cash residual that will carry that for a month or two if you're in between renters. So you've got to make
Right.
sure you're in that position, or you have enough cash. So we try and keep cash in the account for repairs and different
Sure.
things like that.
Right. Well, just like you have an emergency fund for your home, you also have to have an emergency fund for your rental.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, definitely have to do that. But I love that part of it. Well, tell people where they can reach out to you and find your book and your YouTube channel and all of that.
Absolutely. I'm Frozen Pennies, Sara Conklin, Frozen Pennies on YouTube. I am frozenpennies.com if you want to read and enjoy some great frugal facts from a blog. And then the book, Fundamentally Frugal, is available everywhere Amazon, Barnes and Noble, every place that sells books.
Yep. And if we help make her a bestseller, if you're looking to become an author with us, reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com and we'll get you hooked up. So have a great week, everybody. I hope you learned some good frugal tips. I know I did. We'll see you next time. Remember to subscribe, like, and share our podcast. Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.